Antti from OP Financial, Jana from Ramboll, Carol from IKEA, and Stalianos from CDP. All here?
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Antti Myllymäki, and I'm hosting the discussion about recent and fast radical developments in AI for the next 30 minutes. And we are going to cover 3 topics: vision and strategy being the first, approach being the second, and use cases being the third. And on behalf of panelists, I already can promise one thing, that it's first-hand experience only. So I'm so happy that we have a cross-industry people and subject matter expert participating here. And maybe a short introduction about myself. I work at OP Financial Group based in Helsinki. Have been working also with manufacturing, high-tech companies and financial services plus gaming companies before the OP. But without further ado, maybe panelists can shortly present yourself, and let's start with Carl.
Oh, thank you, Antti. So my name is Carl. I look after the data analytics and information management agenda for the franchisor in the IKEA environment. Yeah, you all know IKEA. We sell furniture and try to make a better everyday life for the many people. My background is once back in the midst of time, I was a data scientist. Then I've done a lot of data strategy and digital transformation, working as a consultant mainly with a lot of the big brands around the world. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. Janne.
Yeah, nice to meet you also. Janne Liuttu. So I'm leading analytics and data science practice at Ramboll. So we are a civil engineering group, so pretty old school expert organization working on different fields of our built environment. And before that, I have been working mostly in the consumer industries and financial services in different data initiatives. So it's really interesting to see an industry that's like just getting started within this field.
You are right. And Stalianos.
Hello, everyone. I have a similar journey as Carl. I once upon a time was a data scientist. Currently, I'm the head of data science product and scoring for CDP. And CDP is an international non-for-profit organization with multiple bases globally that helps companies and cities disclose their environmental impact and drives environmental action for our planet, collaboration with many investors.
Cool. Now, our first topic today is about the AI vision and strategy, and defining the strategy or vision without first-hand experience is very hard. However, approaching to the totally new kind of thing as AI without any vision, that's not too good either. So what do you consider the key things when starting the AI journey? And Stalianos, do you want to start?
Thank you very much. Yes, of course. So AI is very much discussed. It's one of the hottest topics in our time for good reason, because it provides a lot of business values when done correctly. And for it to be done correctly, to provide that business value, which is the outcome, at least to the vision stage, we need to also align with the strategic imperatives of the business. We need to identify how the business could potentially look as AI leaders after it went through an AI transformation. That's the first benchmarking. Then we need to manage the expectations on the vision, creating a roadmap that is possible to deliver, to not overpromise and ruin the whole vision from the start. That would be my starting point. It would also be influencing and creating positive stakeholders around the business that are ready to support you, and then creating a talent pipeline that you can maintain.
That sounds a lot like a typical approach of any kind of new things. What's different with AI? Is there something extra you should take into the consideration?
For me, one of the big differences is while AI has, for example, very close collaboration and very close similarities to the usual IT transformations, like happened around the 90s, one of the things that you really need to be careful is that you're not working with a blank canvas. Unfortunately, you are bounded by the data that exists. In software, for example, you're building a product up from scratch, your button that you're coding up or some feature and functionality will either work or won't. You can't upfront tell the same things about data. So one of the things that you need to also be engaging and careful is your data quality and management approach and strategy through the years. A lot of companies, especially in highly regulated spaces like finance, like utilities, have been gathering data just for regulatory control, which doesn't necessarily lend to some of your AI vision. So you need to create your vision in a roadmap that allows for potentially the collection or cleaning of new data, while also identifying where you already have those data assets ready to be leveraged. That would be my differentiator.
Very good point. Carl, what's your take on this one?
No, I would definitely agree with everything Stylianos says. I mean, this is in some ways a different beast. So, and there is where it often fails, because we forget that we think it's a tech problem. So we approach it as a tech problem. And many companies go in, they try to build out algorithms, or they try to create, you know, smart functions that can do stuff. But they forget that in order to really get the value out of those algorithms, or in order to really get the stuff that the algorithms can do to really translate into action and value, you often need to reshape both your technical landscape. As Stylianos says, many things, often the databases are not set up for doing things like training a machine learning algorithm that needs to go back through the data maybe hundreds and thousands of times every day. Think of a normal data warehouse in that setup. But also the data may not be set up or documented in order to do that. So there's a tech side to it, but much more important is the people and the processes around it. Because just creating an algorithm that can do something is very seldom the tricky part. Most of us, I think, could create an algorithm that can do revolutionary things for our companies in a matter of weeks or months. But getting it scaled, even in a mid-sized company, and getting it into reshaping the processes to really take advantage of that, that is where the challenge is. And that is where you need to have a vision that describes how do you plan to take the step from a POC world into piloting and by the end changing your business to a data-driven business where AI supports the people and supports the business to really do what it needs to do.
I agree, and I like your ideas that you know, vision is nice, strategy is nice, but how to make it real is even more important. Janne, any takes here?
Yeah, I think Carl said it well, that nothing is actually done before we change something in our business. So I think when we make visions, when we make strategies, we make a lot of assumptions in the process. So I think it's important to make it real as soon as possible, that identify the use cases, that what parts of our business, what part of our operations, what part of our things that we do for our clients benefit from the AI, and start from there, and then see that, okay, what are the areas that we really see the benefits, and even though that we might be able to develop the models and build up the solutions, but if these are not adopted by the business who is delivering the operations, then of course we are not getting the benefits to then kind of show it to them and get the early wins and show the value, and that way build up the credibility also in the organization for the benefit of these solutions.
Good. I'm thinking the traps that you can fall into this kind of event. Carl, you already got started with those ones. Do you wanna continue?
Yeah, the traps are many and the pitfalls are many. But I think Stalianos was actually on to one of the key ones, which is that the data you're collecting today is often not the data you need. And also we've touched on people processes also, but these traps going after trying to do things that are not aligned with where the low-hanging fruit are, that is one of the biggest traps you can fall into, because then you will be working against the organization where you stand and not with it. And I think if you also try and develop things that look shiny and look fancy, and maybe you have these 100x opportunities. Deloitte knocked on the door and said, we have an opportunity for you, and you went for it. That may not be where you should start your journey, because that may be where you go as a 10th or a 100th initiative. The first initiative should be to really build that momentum, to go for the things that can really be achieved quite quickly, and that you can really do without making huge changes, because the point where those changes needs to come will come, but it needn't be the first month of your initiative or when you make your first vision.
After you get started, and if you are a bit lucky and the results are good, there is often more and more appetite in the organization of speeding up the phase and pace. How to do that? Stylianos, any takes here? So
for me, it's a really interesting topic, this, because quite frankly, we talked, as Carl mentioned, we talked some of the traps. One of the traps is being a science department that does mostly R&D, that doesn't get mainstream in the BAU. Now, let's say, as Antti just said, that you got a lucky break. That's usually when things become difficult, because you didn't have a scaling or management structure that will allow you to replicate that across multiple use cases, multiple teams, scale up quickly to meet business demand. For me, my advice would be twofold. You need to manage these things. You need to manage your talent expectations, but most importantly, once you get the proof of point to senior engagement, you need to manage their expectations and appetite, and especially their time frames. So you need to create a funnel and a management structure. I prefer to use frameworks that work in classical software, like agile product structures, with a little bit of a twist to fit in the data science world. Because, as I said, it is a world where it's not as well understood as IT is, or software development. So you need to have a little bit more base in your technical experts. And then you also need, as a leader, to be able, as very well Carl said, to manage your senior stakeholders and control the incoming funnel. Otherwise, you will try to scale, you will get that 100 times deliverable that is the 100 times difficult to deliver as well, and you might not even have the underlying data, and you will fail to your first scaling attempt.
I agree. I saw this at OP and in the financial industry as well. I think that at least in the financial industry, our information management departments and enterprise data warehouses, they are designed and built to meet the needs for broad scale regulatory initiatives that kick off, then run a year, and then it's done, and then you move to the next one. And fulfilling the data needs of that kind of major regulatory project, it's very different than individual data scientists or small teams of data scientists working here and there on the business. I mean, it would be nice to hear, your take, Carl, about IKEA, about that, and maybe Janne, your perspective to this issue as well. So how to step up, how to step up the information management in a way.
Yeah, I think information management is absolutely crucial for this to work. As we hear these topics coming back in every answer or every time we talk about anything here, which is, you need to ensure data quality in a new way. You need to look at data in a different way, and you need to realize. I mean, the bad stuff in, bad stuff out, to use a politically correct way of saying it, is really never more true than when you're working with AI and cognitive models and machine learning. So really scaling initiatives in this area will take enterprise level information management at a level that most companies are not very good at right now. Especially if you are older companies, if you are, like Janne described, Rumble, more old school, you're probably set up more for doing that kind of work with regard to following legal requirements, following those things. And the approach you need to take here is much more focused on value. What is the things we can do today, the things we can change in the data sets that will bring the most value tomorrow? And if you go after that, instead of trying to do everything at one time, what you will find is that the analytics journey, the AI journey, will point you to where to go next and where to build out your master data management, where to build out your info management agenda step by step. And you will be making a lot of value happen at the same time and enabling each use case step by step.
Yeah, the situation in OP is like that we have been successful of supporting, some 40 data scientists for the past 2 years, the data need. And now we are expanding the data science work also to the citizen data scientists, 120 of them. So this is kind of the next step and next demand for information management that we need to step up. Janne, any takes here before we move into the business cases?
Yeah, I think there were many good points there, and I think it's extremely crucial to kind of build the basis right to where we can build these. And I think whatever use cases we do, I think that the reusability of these, that we aim to do something once and then, if possible, utilize that again, and especially in an organization such as ours, that which is very distributed and very individual or independent businesses. So having the communication and knowledge sharing and avoiding that everyone reinvents the wheel by themselves, since easily you end up in the situation that different organizations within the company are doing things differently, and then it's extremely difficult to scale, since you have a kind of a bunch of different solutions that are not kind of compatible with each other, and of course you are spending a lot of effort to building things that have been already built. So I think this communication and knowledge sharing and then connecting the people that are working with this, and especially as engineering company, we have a lot of these citizen data scientists, and they can be really creative when they do things, but I think it's up to us to provide the right tools in their hands and right processes that they can focus on delivering value instead of kind of trying to build the basis by themselves.
Totally agree, and it's nice to hear that it's not just financial industry who's struggling and getting this on. Then when the AI journey is on the way, it gets more and more business as usual. And a couple of years ago, it used to be the question used to be that, are you doing anything with AI? And then you said, yes, we are doing something. But nowadays, it's much more business as usual. It's elemental part of any product or service development for at least most B2C companies, I'd say. Then And I think that, you know, highlighting success stories and good stories about the use cases and all that gets more and more important. And if you would have to pick up, you know, 1 or 2 use cases from the past year that totally surprised you in a good or bad way, what would be your picks? Janne, do you want to continue?
Yeah, maybe I could maybe start from, so of course we have one use case that I think is interesting. So one of the places that where we started with, let's say real AI, so these different computer vision use cases. So for us, this started within our environmental practice, where we are monitoring large mining sites and restoration of these sites, which can be really extensive areas, and we need to cover large areas of land and see that how the land and the vegetation and so forth is progressing over time, and this has been done already for quite a few years, and then when building that, and then the reusability of that and utilizing the same tools that were utilized in these use cases have been reused across very many different use cases across the organization. So the environmental practice have used the basically same algorithms on just different data to identify invasive species in Europe, and utilize that to monitor sites there, and then basically the same kind of technical setup was replicated in our water practice, utilizing the microscopic images that we are using for water samples to identify the bacteria there. So that's kind of really nice example of the reusability of some of the methodology and technology that we are utilizing in the AI space, that with small tailoring we can just take a different use case, different data, but utilize under the hood the same tools to deliver new kind of value. And I think these have been extremely interesting, and we are seeing these coming more and more across the organization, different areas that we can apply these same algorithms.
Yeah, for me it sounds like almost like data scientist, not a dream use case, but you know, like a top 10 use case, because you improve a single thing or a couple of things, and then the impact is across the organization, not just one use case. So
yeah, exactly, and I think that also highlights that it also enables us to provide the tools to the frontline people, that when they have something that they can play around with their data, then it helps also to come up with the new ideas.
Yeah, and it gives faith that, you know, this is not something that takes place behind the velvet curtain of data scientists. This is something that we can do by ourselves, not to the highest level, but anyway. Good stuff. Stulianos, what would be your pick of the use cases or surprises?
I would say two events. One in a previous role in a water utility, we managed to get to a digital twin of our network running 24/7 that actually provided in our frontline staff a better experience for their job. I'm a huge advocate of augmented intelligence. So we had these people searching infrastructure for faults in a generic term. They would walk huge amounts of areas to try and identify with testing mechanism where faults would exist. And I believe their life became a lot better when suddenly they had a prioritized list with a simple rug coloring that they could go, and the user interaction and the ideas we got from the field, the new feature of that was groundbreaking. So it was a true synergy between data scientists and technicians, with a surprise there that there was some elements of tacit knowledge where they were telling us that our models were not right. We couldn't explain why, but they knew that because there was no documented reason, but there was reason that was said among the frontline staff. So that helped us achieve a better outcome. And then on a secondary, we currently in CDP, we had a big Kaggle hackathon to see what more we could do about the planet. Some of the ideas, like for example, leveraging satellite imagery about green canopy of cities with similar geographical and socio-financial characteristics to find out how much forestry they have and how better placed they are to then recommend different actions for the betterment and enhancements of the planet and other cool stuff that we're doing. That was also a great amount of pleasure, and something that came from the global data science community, which illustrates that if you have a good cause, data scientists as a species, if I may, would band around and try to help you.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about the feedback from the peers, from the colleagues. I remember one example last week. We have a propensity model, housing propensity model estimator, which estimates the price of the house. And we were talking with one of the network banks, and our estimation of the individual property was that it's 500,004 euros. So 504,000 euros, and the bank was saying, yeah, it's not too far off, but not exact, because that property had been sold on the previous week with 501,000 euros. And we were like, oh gee, I don't know what's the benchmark if we have to beat that, but even for a human it would be almost impossible. But I love that kind of feedback. Carl, what would you pick?
Yeah, so we get, as IKEA, we get around 7 million written feedbacks a year, give or take. And before, like 2-3 years ago, those most often they were not read. If they were read, they were read by someone in the store or someone in. So we created a system to use natural language processing to read every one of those and structure the data and present it in different dashboards, different ways. And the organization was, on the operational level, really happy. But strategically, the organization wasn't that amazed because there wasn't a lot of movement. So we had actually started looking at, is something wrong here? Why isn't, the big topics moving? And then Corona came. And that shook up everything. And then we saw movement. And what was great was this system that had been, it's been celebrated in an operational level, but was kind of slipping into obscurity in the strategic level, was that now it started telling us exactly what we needed to do to preserve our customer experience. It started telling us, so we could, on a weekly basis, go after the top pain points of our customers. If that was that our click and collect wasn't working, or if that was that, we were failing at an unacceptable level to fulfill, so we needed to stop selling even in our e-commerce for a little while to make sure we could keep up. And it was really, really valuable in that setting. And that was something that I think when we built it, we were always thinking of it like that. But interesting to see how normal times was almost invalidating it on a strategic level. And then it really shone. So that was, to me, quite amazing. And then I have, of course, a myriad of other examples, big and small. But this one is the one that would come to me as the biggest surprise, I would say, recently.
That's very interesting. You are operating in almost all countries where there is, peacetime. Are some areas or some countries more leaning towards to listening the customer than the others? What were the first ones to go for it and
I think
you always must have these kind of front runners who are leading the pack, because you cannot do it yourself. You need the member firms.
We have between 70 and 80 markets, depending on how you count. And I would say that this is actually a case where everyone was crowding in as quick as they could, because I think the operations side, they really saw the value. It was no discussion. So what we ended up doing, we actually went to the USA to start building it. way back, but that was an effect of, as it often is in big companies, who stood next to you when you shouted out, which CEO of which market was next to you when you asked who wants to be a part of this. So it wasn't really a very data-driven decision, to be honest. But today we are in most of those markets. In certain markets, data regulation makes it hard to work with written feedbacks, because even with cleansing and anonymization, we don't get clean enough. And one thing we always take into account, and something we probably should have touched on in the vision too, actually, is the data ethics. You need to make sure that you're not only legal and compliant, but that you're very ethical, making sure that always the customer and the world comes first, and then making money or your business better comes second, because otherwise you will always fail in the long run.
I hear you and totally agree. Now, Yusin, do you want to join us to review the questions from the audience?
Thank you so much. You know what? Because we don't have any pressure. The time is getting over in 5 minutes, but we are not running anywhere. Stay here with us. If there is anybody asking questions, feel free to join. From this moment, everybody will get the option of switching on camera and mic if they have questions. So my colleagues are going to give them this permission. Carol had to go, I think. Carol, so whenever you have to go, then thank you so much for being here. You can leave us.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks a lot.
I can stay for 2 minutes more, but
perfect.
Not
perfect.
Not longer.
Perfect. So questions, guys, if you have, please just click your camera and mic and jump in here. Yes, Jon from Danske.
Hi guys, hopefully you can hear me.
All good.
Thank you for an interesting discussion. I have a question. So during the summit, we've heard a lot about how crucial it is to ensure that you have business alignment and buy-in across the board, right? And I think more than one person has stated that it's also important to have these cross-functional teams in order to actually make that happen in actuality. But it also seems to be the case that data scientists are often placed on the side, so in separate BUs, teams, or centers of excellence. So I wanted to know, in your opinion, are these organizations who have set data science up separate from the cross-functional teams, will they ever be able to successfully drive and implement these use cases?
Yeah, I can start. We at OP, we worked on a project mode for 2 years in 2017 and 18. And then we had a separate project with the data scientist. And we started to operate a center of excellence in January 2019. And it meant that the data scientist worked on the business tribe teams. Priorities come from the business product owners. And I think that we wouldn't be here without that movement. So yes, we have a couple of teams that we are giving priorities by ourselves, but the rest 35, 40 data scientists, they are all over the business tribes.
Yeah, I similar experience. I think the maturity journey here is from federated, where you kind of go out, the business kind of goes out and in a shadow IT way almost buys what they need, and you end up where Janne was talking. Everyone builds their own thing, and you have 100 data models in the company, and no consistency. Then you start centralizing, because you need to centralize, and then you have you're probably going to end up with a internal center of excellence or an internal group of people that can do it for a while, and then as you mature further, and we are in that process in IKEA now, moving a little bit out of that, or both into and out of that, you kind of find the right level of that central center of excellence, but federating out the vast majority, because in the end, the business will know what the business needs, and it's much easier to land it when you build it in the process instead of building it out of and trying to land it in.
I would like to add on that to both Anti's and Carl's bit. I believe that Carl, I won't repeat what Carl said. It is the usual journey as you go through, but there are even more steps that could come after that. So the next maturity step after you created almost like a hub and spoke model is that you yourself, if you have, I don't know, around the business, 12 to 14 different product data science teams, getting these business instructions from their product owners, building things up, you suddenly become a business yourself. So the next maturity model is that these teams will create without knowing said functionality. So the next potential move is to create a platform team, not a center of excellence or a central team, but a platform that has an oversight from a technical perspective and can generalize some of the stuff. Oh, you built a fringe model for this use case, which is useful and quite good. We could take, generalize, repurpose it, and give it to all our product teams as a generalized library that will expedite their productionization, their new development process. So that's a further step that you could take.
Yeah, I agree with Stylianos, and this is something that we are doing as part of the Citizen Data Scientist initiative. So we are providing the Citizen Data Scientist a tool, and then the extended libraries with predefined, functionalities to customer segmentation, target group selection, etc., etc. So.
Yeah, and I think maybe to add here, I think there is no like silver bullet here, and there is always trade-offs between the different ways that you organize, and we are at the moment we are now centralizing some parts of the work, but definitely the business should be close to the business or as close to the business and business stakeholders and clients as possible, but yeah, there are problems with that, like I said earlier, and we just need to adjust our organization and live with that, since I think there is no perfect answer in any time available to this.
Yeah, Janne, you are right. And whenever you find a balance, then the business changes in a way that you are out of balance anyway, next month or next week. Thanks for the great question, John. Yusin, I think that we are running a bit over the time, so I'd like to, thank, first class panelists here, and I think that at least for me it was a very good discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Antti.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Have a great one.
Thanks a lot. So just to summarize in a minute, thank you so much for the speakers and panelists who have spent so much time preparing yourselves. Thanks a lot as well to the sponsors, Tiger Graph, Data Robot, Dinoda, and Wearscape with sponsors.